All right, let's talk about one of the biggest challenges in the food world. We're diving into a really cool piece of food science today, a breakthrough that could totally change the way we think about the fats in our food. I mean, just think about it for a second. What if that juicy burger, those flaky pastries, or that creamy chocolate spread could actually be, well, good for you? It sounds a little too good to be true, right? But food scientists are working on making it a reality. And it all comes down to these guys, tiny, microscopic droplets of oil. They're the secret to what makes our food taste so good, what gives it that amazing texture. But here's the catch. The solid fats we've always used, think saturated fats, trans fats, they come with some serious health baggage. And that's the dilemma we're going to unpack. So before we can get to the solution, we've got to understand the problem itself. Let's talk about the trouble with fat. Okay, so this isn't just some friendly advice. The World Health Organization, one of the biggest health authorities on the planet, has put a very clear number on it. No more than 10% of our daily calories should come from saturated fats. Why? Because a high intake is directly tied to higher levels of that bad LDL cholesterol, which is a huge risk factor for heart disease. This is a serious public health goal. So here's the real tug of war. On one hand, you absolutely need solid fats to make food that people love. They give you that perfect texture, that satisfying feel in your mouth, that rich flavor. They literally build the structure of the food. But on the other hand, we know that diets loaded with saturated and trans fats are linked to some really serious health problems. So the billion-dollar question for food scientists has been, how do you get all the good stuff without the bad? Well, that question leads us right to this really clever solution that's been gaining a ton of traction. They're called oleogels. So what on earth is an oleogel? Put simply, it's a way of taking healthy liquid oils, think sunflower oil, canola oil, you name it, and giving them the physical properties of a solid fat, like butter or shortening. And that thermoreversible part just means you can melt it, and when it cools down, it'll turn back into a gel. It's like getting the best of both worlds, the healthy profile of a liquid oil with the texture and function of a solid one. So how does this magic trick actually work? How do you turn a liquid into a solid without changing it chemically? The science is actually pretty cool and surprisingly elegant. The secret weapon is something called an oleogelator. Now, these are just edible things, often totally natural stuff like beeswax or other plant waxes. And the amazing part is you only need a tiny, tiny amount of them. They have this incredible natural ability to create a structure inside the liquid oil. If you could zoom in, way, way in, this is what you'd see. Those oleogelator molecules basically link up all by themselves and build this huge 3D web of tiny crystals. It acts just like a microscopic sponge, soaking up all the liquid oil and trapping it in place so it can't flow around anymore. And just like that, your liquid now acts like a solid. And the process itself? It's actually super straightforward. You basically just dissolve a little bit of the oleogelatainer in the oil, you heat it up so everything melts and mixes together, and then you just let it cool down. As it cools, that amazing crystal network builds itself, and boom, you've got an oleogel. Okay, so this isn't just a cool lab experiment. The real-world applications for this are huge. We're talking about a pathway to making our food healthier without us even noticing a difference in taste. And the power of oleogels goes way beyond just swapping out bad fats. These things are workhorses. You can use them to fine-tune textures, stop that annoying oil separation you see in things like natural peanut butter, and they can even help our bodies better absorb important nutrients like vitamins A, D, and E. Let's look at a real-world example, the humble beef burger. Studies have actually swapped out the animal fat for an oleogel, and the results were incredible. First off, saturated fat dropped a lot. The ratio of healthy fats to unhealthy fats shot way up. Plus, the burger lost less fat and water when it was cooked, so it was actually juicier. And the texture? People often said it was even more tender than the original. And it's not just burgers, not by a long shot. This tech is being looked at for everything. For sausages, it can replace pork fat to make them way healthier. For pastries and cookies, it can take the place of shortening. For spreads, it means you can get a buttery texture without using hydrogenation, which is what creates those nasty trans fats. Even chocolate is getting a healthy makeover. So, this all sounds like a massive win, right? But what does the future really hold? Is this the silver bullet we've been waiting for? Okay, let's get real for a second. Here's the scorecard. The pros are huge, right? Less bad fat, great texture, plant-based, can even deliver nutrients. But there are still some hurdles. Making them isn't as simple as just mixing stuff. It takes real scientific know-how. Over a long shelf life, some of them can start to weep oil. That's what syneresis is. And because they're full of healthier unsaturated oils, they can sometimes go rancid a bit faster if you're not careful. But here's the bottom line, the most important takeaway from all of this. Even with those challenges, Oleogel technology is an incredibly powerful and promising tool. It might be one of our best shots at fixing some of the problems in our food system, finally closing that gap between what's healthy and what's delicious. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to chew on. Are we heading towards a future where the phrase healthy junk food isn't a joke anymore, where we can actually enjoy our favorite treats without the guilt? You know, with innovations like Oleogels, that future might just be a whole lot closer than we think. Thanks for tuning in.